All right, good afternoon, Algebra 2 students. Excited to bring your video to you today for Chapter 7. Today we are going to talk about adding and subtracting rational expressions. We're going to start easy, kind of build on it tomorrow. But again, just the importance of factoring. You'll see a little bit of factoring involved today. Not quite as much as our previous sections, but we'll see more factoring coming up down the road as well. But before we get into adding and subtracting rational expressions, let's start with just basic fractions. All right, so we're just going to do a problem here real quick. Let's say that I had, I don't know, let's say I had 3/4 plus 3/5. Okay. And I wanted to add these two fractions together, okay? So I want you to think about, what do we need to add these together, right? I can't add these fractions as they are. I need a common denominator, all right? Well, the easiest way for us to determine what our common denominator is to look at the denominators of both fractions, right? So I have a fraction of 4 and I have a fraction of 5, right, in my denominators. So hold on here. Excuse me. All right, sorry for that. So my lowest common denominator is simply going to be 4 times 5, right? The easiest way to figure out the lowest common denominator is to look at the denominators of each fraction, right? So my lowest common denominator is going to be 20, okay? Now that means in order for me to get a denominator of 20, when I come back over to my fractions, well, I need to multiply this fraction on the left by 5/5, right? I need to multiply the bottom by 5 so that I can get the common denominator of 20. And what I do to the denominator, I also have to do to the top, okay? Well, my second fraction, right, I don't need to multiply top and bottom of this by 5, right? To make 20, I need to multiply top and bottom of this by 4, okay? And so I just want to remind you, as we're adding fractions, we need to have a common denominator. The easiest way to find the common denominator is to multiply the two denominators together, right? And then once I know what the common denominator is, well, my next step is to go ahead and get those common denominators. So that's what we're in the process of right now. So this first fraction, we're going to turn into, well, 5 times 3 is 15 over 20, right? And we're going to add that to 3 times 4 is 12. 5 times 4 is 20, right? Now we have common denominators, okay? So now once we have common denominators, we are now actually able to add these fractions. And important to remember when we're adding and subtracting fractions is we're actually just going to add the numerators, right? So I'm really just taking 15 plus 12. Well, 15 plus 12 is 27, and I'm going to put that over 20. And that would be our final answer, okay? All right, so let's progress this to rational functions, all right? So here's an example of a rational function, very similar to the two fractions that we just added together on the previous slide, okay? Now I want you to notice we have some steps off to the side, okay? So first step, factor if necessary. All right, that's not always going to be the case. In this example problem, we don't have any factoring that we need to do, okay? So our next step is we need to determine, okay, what's going to be our lowest common denominator? Well, our lowest common denominator is I'm going to take each part of the denominator, all right? So when I just look at my denominators, one of my denominators is x plus 7. My other denominator is x minus 5. Okay, so my lowest common denominator is going to be both of these factors multiplied together, okay? So now step number 3 says, well, let's multiply each fraction by the parts we need in the least common denominator. So when I look at my first fraction here, right, I already have the x plus 7. Let's go ahead and put parentheses around this. So what I need from my least common denominator, well, I need x minus 5. So I'm going to multiply the bottom kind of tight on room here, by x minus 5. And I'm going to multiply the top by x minus 5. Okay? Now my second fraction, again, we'll put parentheses around this. All right, if I want to turn this into the least common denominator, right, well, we already have the x minus 5, so what we need is the x plus 7. And what I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. Okay? Now, let's continue on in step 3. Step 3 says is go ahead and multiply those together. All right? So we have a little work to do, and what we're going to focus on is the numerators. All right? These are going to get multiplied together, and these two are going to get multiplied together. All right? This addition is going to stay for a moment. All right? So let's go ahead and multiply. So this 4 is going to get distributed into the parentheses, to the x and to the 5, right? So that's going to give me 4x minus 20. And this is all over. Now, the denominators we're not actually going to multiply. We're just going to leave those factored in their factored form. So I'm just going to write that as x minus 5 and x plus 7. All right, then we're going to add to that. Now let's work with our second fraction, right? So again, the 6 is going to get distributed to the x and to the 7. All right, so that's going to give me 6x plus 6 times 7 is 42. And all of this is over x minus 5 and x plus 7. Okay? So at this point, this is step number 3. All right? When we've multiplied each fraction by its needed parts of the least common denominator. Okay? So now we've changed this problem in it to an extent. We've put it in a position that now we can actually do step number 4, and that's add or subtract. All right? So now when I'm adding and subtracting fractions, right, I'm just going to skip ahead. I'm going to end up with one fraction, right, that's going to have the denominator of the lowest common denominator. So just simply x minus 5 and x plus 7. Okay, that's my denominator. All right, my denominator is easy at this point. All right, all the denominator work already happened up here in step number 2. Okay, so once I get past step number 2, my denominator should be pretty easy. Okay, well now let's go back up and let's work with the numerator. So now I'm just going to combine like terms. So 4x plus 6x will give me 10x. And a negative 20 plus positive 42 will give me a positive 22. So now I've combined this all together. I have one fraction. This is all my answer. Okay? So again, if we walk back through our steps here, right, step number 1, we factored our denominators. We didn't have to do that in this problem. Our work was pretty easy. Okay, step number 2, we determined the lowest common denominator. We did that by just looking at each parts of the denominator, right? Then we used those parts to create the least common denominator in both fractions, and then we just added, subtracted, and simplified. All right? And that's how we are going to add rational expressions. So let's do a couple of more of those. Okay? Let's take this one. All right? Now, step number 1, right, is always factor if necessary. So I'm always going to look at my denominators and say, hey, what can I factor here? Don't worry about your numerators, okay? Well, to begin with, right, I can take x squared minus 9, and I know that I can factor that. That's a difference of squares. So I'm going to factor that into x plus 3 and x minus 3, okay? Now, my second denominator, right, that's already factored. Nothing I can do there, okay? So now let's determine the least common denominator, all right? So let's look at the parts of the first denominator, right? The parts of the first denominator are x plus 3 and x minus 3. Oops, okay? Now, the parts of my second denominator, Well, that's x minus 3. I already have that factored in, right? So what that means is that this first fraction, I don't have to do anything to it. It already has the least common denominator, all right? So I'm just going to skip down here. I'm just going to rewrite that. So I'm just going to rewrite it as 6x plus 1 divided by x plus 3 and x minus 3. Because again, it already has the least common denominator. I don't need to do anything extra to it, okay? Now, my second fraction, that's not the case, all right? Now, it has the x minus 3, so I need to multiply top and bottom by x plus 3. Okay, let's write this in parentheses here. So when I do that, again, this 4 gets distributed to both parts, just like in our previous problem. So this is going to give me 4x, and then plus 4 times 3 is 12. And this will all be divided by, now my lowest common denominator I have in place, x plus 3 and x minus 3. All right, and now, again, that's step number 3 right here, right? We've multiplied, we've gotten common denominators. So now the last thing we need to do is we just need to add and subtract, all right? So 6x plus 4x, I know that's 10x, and 1 plus 12 is 13. This will all be divided by x plus 3 and x minus 3. And that is my answer. All right? So again, I hope as you're seeing these problems, you're just recognizing, hey, okay, common denominators, just like fractions. I want to do a couple more problems, right? And then you can get started on your assignment today. All right, so let's do another one here, okay? So let's start out with this first one, okay? Now, it says factor the denominators if necessary. So when I look at my two denominators, right, x plus 4 and x plus 4, I notice they're already factored. Hey, I also noticed that they're actually already the same. So in this problem, not only do I not need to do step number 1, all right, they already have the least common denominator, right? The least common denominator is x plus 4, all right? It's not x plus 4 times x plus 4. It's just x plus 4. They already have the same denominator. So that means I don't even need to do step number 3, right? There's nothing to change in either one of these fractions. They already have common denominators. So all we need to do is add and subtract, and then we'll simplify, all right? So let's just add across the top, right? 7x plus x, well, that gives me 8x. 4 plus a negative 5 would give me minus 1, and this is all over the common denominator of x plus 4. Well, that problem's pretty darn easy, isn't it? Okay? So we do want to be on the lookout. Sometimes your problems might already have the least common denominator in common, right? Both fractions possess it. Nothing we need to do. We just need to add and subtract across the top, okay? All right, one last problem. And this would be the most complicated of the problems that we're going to look at today, all right? So first off, I just want you to recognize nothing we need to factor here. This one's actually already been factored. It looks like they pulled the 5 out over here, okay? But now let's look at each part of the denominator, all right? So if I start over here with my first fraction on the left, right? The least common denominator here involves a 5 and an x, all right? Now, my second denominator, notice that it already has the 5. All right, so both of these, right, they already have the 5 in place. Okay, so even when I'm determining my lowest common denominator, I'm not going to include that 5 again. I already have a 5, right? But what I don't have is this x plus 4. So all of this, 5x times x plus 4, is what would make up our lowest common denominator. All right, so now let's go to step 3. So what do we need in each part? All right, if I look at my first fraction, it already has the 5, and it already has the x. So all that it needs is I just need to multiply top and bottom by x plus 4. All right? Now let's look at our second fraction, okay? Our second fraction already has the 5, and it already has the x plus 4. So all that it needs is to be multiplied top and bottom by x. All right? So in this example, we have 3 different parts to our least common denominator. We have the 5, that's part 1. We have the x, that's part 2. And we have the x plus 4. Now, both individual fractions have 2 of the 3 parts, so we're just multiplying by the part that they're missing. All right? Now, my numerator here, I got a FOIL. All right, so for me to multiply all this out. All right, so let's go ahead and do that here. So x times 5x would be 5x squared. All right, x times a negative 1 would just be minus 1x. 4 times 5x, that gives me 20x. And then I have 4 times a negative 1, which would give me a negative 4. And this is all over my least common denominator, which is just simply 5x times x plus 4. Right? It really doesn't matter what order you write these points or these factors, these parts, because it's all multiplication. So it comes out to be the same. All right? Then we're going to go minus. Now let's multiply here, right? Well, 6 times x, that's easy. That's just 6x. And this is all over 5. Now I'm going to write my parts in the same order as I did over there. So I'm going to put the x in here, and then I'll put the x plus 4. Again, it really doesn't matter what order you have the parts in the denominator, as long as you have all the right parts. Okay? So now let's go ahead. We're on step number 4. Let's add, subtract, and simplify. All right, so I got this 5x squared. There's no other x squared terms in my numerator, so that's just going to stay a 5x squared. All right, now I have this minus 1x, this 20x, and this 6x, right? Those are all like terms, so let's go ahead and combine all those. So I have a negative x plus 20x. Well, that gives me positive 19x. And then minus 6x. So I'm going to end up with a positive 13x. And then I got this 4 hanging out on the end here. Doesn't have any like terms with it. So there's my new numerator, my denominator, 5x times x plus 4. All right. And that is as far as we can go. Some of you might be tempted to cancel out these 5s, but we got addition here that stops us. Remember, we can only cancel across multiplication, not across addition or subtraction. All right, so that is as simple as we can go. We've added and in this case, subtracted our rational functions, and that's the work that you're going to do today. Okay. So here's your homework assignment. I'm going to ask that you utilize your time wisely, and let's get this knocked out, so that we are ready to go tomorrow to take the next step. All right? If you've got questions, please jot those down now while they're fresh in your mind so we can address those to start tomorrow. All right. You guys, that's your video for today. Make it a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.